It's about evolution. It's not about revolution. In terms of the way you make the world a better place is with little increments. Is not by, complete takeover. So that's what we're trying to do here. Okay. And yes, what I said is true. There's some portions in the Torah that ethically I wish were worded differently. 100%. If a religious person cannot acknowledge that, find another teacher. Okay? Because if he's lying to you about that, what else is he lying to you about? Now, I could say, oh, this makes sense if I take this verse here, take this verse there. That just gets me to say, I wish it would have been worded differently because it acts more like of a stumbling block than not. And I'll tell you one example, the Akedah. I have a whole issue with the Akedah. God telling someone to sacrifice his son. According to those verses alone, I can't articulate that to an atheist. Why didn't God in some way inspire these guys more to write it in a clearer fashion? This doesn't mean that this is not the word of God. Okay? It just means that I can't articulate it as it appears. This is why I always teach that the Torah is the actual word of God, i.e. the instructions within what we call the Torah, not necessarily the narrative. That's it. Okay, but let's be honest first. First, tell the truth, then give your opinion, and you'll win so many more people. Because yes, we have to give a response to around 5 things in the Torah or in the Bible that don't make ethical sense, while they have to give a response to everything else. And they don't have those answers. However, if we get stuck with them bashing you over these 5 verses and you are unsuccessfully trying to defend these 5 verses, you're never going to get to the meat. You're never going to get the core of the argument. That where can man get ethics that actually work, that people on a universal level could appeal to? Because if Mao writes a book, these are the words of Mao. They're not the words of God. You know what I mean? Someone could say, well, is Mao making himself God? Or if I try to vote some sort of law into existence, that's something I feel is good for me. They'll be like, who are you to say it's good for me? Evolution over revolution. Let's win the battle little by little. And the bigger battle, like I said in the beginning of our discussion, like me and the gentleman, it's a right versus left. It's always going to be right versus left. It's rare. I'm sure it's possible. It's rare to get an atheist up here who's on the right. Why? Because it's good ideas versus bad ideas. Jews say the same thing. In Israel, I was trying to get someone to vote. I don't know what it was, for Mafdal when I lived there or something. He's like, why am I going to vote? It says, is it in the Gemara? Maybe it's in Mishlei. It says, the heart of the king is in the hand of God. That means God, whatever he wants is going to happen. Idiot. This just means that the opposition is always going to win because you're not going to vote. We can't be too heavenly good that we're no earthly good. We have to vote our values. Of course, if I told them, you know what? There's a petition that they want you to sign that in some way is going to ensure they don't give poison to your kids on Monday in school. Of course, everyone's going to run to sign that petition. How is that different from voting? How is that different? The reason they don't vote is because they don't know enough about the issue to care to vote. So they're basically saying, I'm ignorant, so I'm in some way going to encourage everyone else also not to vote. My gosh, this is what you get when idiots are put in front of the pulpit.
I'm curious, what would you say your ratio is? Like, how many people that follow you have you persuaded away from another religion by convincing arguments? And what percentage would you say just came because they already were on the path to Judaism but had nowhere to go?
The vast majority of people were already on the path. Clearly, look, more people are going to come to religion because they have demons in their closet, because they're struggling with addiction, than being like Abraham. And this is why Abraham is so special to us, because he was the first not to hear the word of God. He's the first to hear God's voice in his ear, pick up from where he was and go where God wanted him to be. He intellectualized the notion of one God. Should we expect that to be common? No, the average person is a Yaron Reuven fan, unfortunately, a Rabbi Mizrahi fan, right? However, we have to acknowledge that there are more important catches out there. It's greater to convert an atheist than to essentially convert a simpleton. Why? Because the atheist could articulate his position better, which means that he'll be able to gather more people to your side. Now, obviously, there are cases where a simpleton could be made into a great scholar. It's possible, it's not probable.
So when you say simpleton, I'm thinking like Forrest Gump, where they don't have to be a scholar. But if
true.
They have a good role model, then you've got them in the right direction. And I don't think that's such a bad thing, because honestly, a lot of people don't want to be scholars.
No, I hear you. And this is why we have to speak in a way that everybody understands. Okay. But however, if you know less, start admiring people who know more. But this idea that we're all equally worthless, like from an academic perspective, is not true. All right. I mean, this is the whole argument of Korach. We're all special. We're all God's people. If you submit yourself to God, you're part of God's camp. But the idea of equity, which is essentially what Jews teach nowadays, all Jews are going to make it to the world to come. You know how stupid that sounds? No matter how good you are, you're all going to end up in the same place. Equity is equality of outcome. We're defined and we're distinguished by our merits. You try hard, you should demand more. You should expect more because you tried harder. You know, and they think that these are great arguments. And then, yeah, all Jews are special, all Jews are special. Not all Jews are special, okay? Only because you happen to have a Jewish mother doesn't make you special. If you try hard to be a good husband, a good father, a good citizen, then you're better than someone who does not. That's I think, pretty intuitive and clear.